I thought I was building something real. A restaurant, a life, a future with her. 3 weeks. That's all it lasted. She knew what she was doing from day one, and I was too blind to see it. By the time I understood, everything was gone. The restaurant, the money. Her, if our stories resonate with you, don't forget to like, comment, and tell us where you're watching from. This story was shared with us by one of our viewers. I'm standing on an empty beachfront property in Koh Samui, and I can already see it. The tables under the stars. The smell of wood-fired pizza mixing with salt air. People laughing, clinking glasses, telling me the food reminds them of home. I can see it so clearly it hurts. My name is Dennis. I'm 58 years old, and I just spent the last 3 days walking this stretch of beach, imagining my restaurant already standing here. I've got $85,000 in my savings account. It's everything I have left after the divorce. Everything I managed to keep after splitting a life with someone who stopped loving me years before she finally said the words. I managed a restaurant in Seattle for 23 years. A good place, Italian-American, the kind of spot where regulars knew your name and tourists left 5-star reviews. But it wasn't mine. Every night I'd lock up and hand the keys to someone else. Every decision went through someone else. Every dream I had about the menu, the atmosphere, the experience, it all died in meetings with owners who cared more about margins than magic. I told myself that one day I'd have my own place. One day I'd build something that mattered. Then my marriage fell apart, and suddenly I had nothing holding me back, nothing holding me anywhere. My ex-wife and I had been together for 26 years. High school sweethearts. The kind of story people say is romantic until they see how it actually ends. Somewhere around year 15 we stopped talking. Really talking. We'd sit at dinner, and the silence would stretch between us like an ocean. I'd try to bring up the restaurant dream, and she'd change the subject. I'd suggest we take a trip, and she'd say we couldn't afford it. But we could afford her new car, her shopping trips, her salon appointments every week. I'm not saying I was perfect. I worked too much. I stopped trying to impress her. I let myself get comfortable in the numbness. But when she finally said she wanted a divorce, I wasn't surprised. I was relieved. The settlement took almost everything. The house, half my savings, the truck I'd bought with my first bonus check. I moved into a studio apartment that smelled like old carpet and tried to figure out what 58 years old and alone actually meant. That's when I remembered Thailand. I'd been there once before, 15 years ago. My ex-wife complained the entire trip. Too hot, too crowded, too different from what she knew. But I remembered something she didn't. I remembered sitting on a beach in Krabi watching the sunset and thinking for the first time in years that maybe life didn't have to be what I'd settled for. Maybe there was something more. That memory stayed with me through the divorce, through the lonely nights in that studio apartment, through the monotony of managing someone else's dream day after day. So when the papers were finally signed, and I was sitting alone with a bottle of cheap whiskey and a laptop, I started searching. Businesses for sale in Thailand, beachfront properties, cost of living, stories of expats who'd retired there and never looked back. I fell asleep that night with my head full of possibilities, and when I woke up I knew. I was going. I gave my notice at the restaurant. My boss tried to talk me out of it. "You're throwing away 23 years, he said. "For what? A pipe dream in a country you don't even know?" But that was exactly the point. I didn't know it. And I wanted to. 2 months later, I landed in Bangkok with 2 suitcases, $85,000 in my account, and a dream I'd been carrying since I was 25. The first week in Thailand was everything I hoped it would be. Koh Samui is beautiful in a way that makes you feel like you've been living wrong your whole life. The beaches are white. The water is so blue it doesn't look real. And the people smile at you like you're worth smiling at. I rented a small villa on the hillside overlooking Chaweng Beach. Nothing fancy. Just 2 bedrooms, a kitchen and a balcony, where I'd sit every morning with coffee and watch the sun come up over the ocean. I felt alive for the first time in years. I spent my days walking the beaches, looking at properties, talking to real estate agents who spoke just enough English to get by. I'd point at empty lots and they'd nod and say, "Good for business." "Very good." I'd ask about permits and they'd smile and say, "No problem. We help you." Everything felt possible. Everything felt easy. I should have known that was the first warning sign. But I didn't want to know. I wanted to believe that starting over could actually be this simple. Then I met her. I was at the night market in Choweng, trying to buy vegetables I didn't recognize from a vendor who kept laughing at my terrible attempts at Thai. I was holding up a strange purple eggplant and making confused faces when I heard a voice behind me. "You need help?" I turned around and there she was, Wanita. She was beautiful in a way that didn't need makeup or effort, maybe mid-30s, with long black hair pulled back in a simple ponytail and a smile that made you feel like you'd known her for years. She was wearing jeans and a white t-shirt, nothing fancy, but she carried herself with a confidence I'd forgotten existed. "Is it that obvious?" I asked, laughing. She grinned. "Little bit. You look very lost." She talked to the vendor in rapid Thai, then turned back to me. "She says you're picking the wrong vegetables. These ones are better." She pointed to a different pile. I bought what she suggested, and we ended up walking through the market together. She told me her name was Wanita, that she'd grown up in Bangkok but moved to Samui 8 years ago. She worked as a tour guide, showing foreigners around the island, helping them find the places tourists never see. "It's good work," she said, "but not stable. Some months are good. Some months I barely make rent." I told her I was looking to open a restaurant. Her whole face lit up. "That's amazing," she said. "Not many people have the courage to start over like that, especially at your age." She said it without malice, just honest observation, and somehow that made it feel like a compliment. We talked for maybe 30 minutes, about Thailand, about Seattle, about what it's like to leave everything behind and try to build something new. When we finally said goodbye, she handed me a card with her phone number. "If you need help with anything, call me," she said. "I know everyone here. I can make things easier for you." I thanked her, tucked the card in my wallet, and figured I'd probably never use it. 2 days later, I was standing in a property office with a lease agreement I couldn't read and an owner who didn't speak English. I remembered Wanita's card. I pulled out my phone and called. She answered on the second ring. "Dennis," she said, and I was surprised she remembered my name. "I was wondering when you'd need me." She met me at the office within an hour. She walked in wearing a sundress and sandals, but the moment she started talking to the property owner, her whole demeanor changed. She was professional, sharp. She asked questions I hadn't even thought of. She pointed at sections of the contract and argued in Thai, her voice firm but not aggressive. After maybe 20 minutes, she turned to me and smiled. "He was trying to overcharge you," she said. "I told him you're my friend. He'll lower the rent by 30% and include utilities for the first 6 months. I stared at her, amazed. "I didn't have to do that," she shrugged, still smiling. "That's what friends do, Dennis." That was the first time she called me a friend, and something about the way she said it made me feel less alone than I'd felt in years. We started meeting every day after that. She'd take me to property owners, contractors, kitchen equipment suppliers. She'd translate everything, negotiate prices I never could have gotten on my own, explain the local customs and rules that I'd never understand without help. I was amazed at how connected she was. Everyone seemed to know her. Shop owners, restaurant suppliers, local government officials. She'd walk into a building and people would smile and greet her by name. So I felt lucky to have found her. No, that's not right. I felt lucky she'd found me. One morning, about a week after we started working together, we were having coffee at a beachside cafe, the kind of place with plastic chairs and the best iced coffee I'd ever tasted. She was showing me photos on her phone of different restaurant designs, asking what I liked, what felt right. Then she put the phone down and looked at me. "Can I ask you something personal?" she said. I nodded. "Why did you really come here, Dennis?" I thought about lying, about giving her the simple answer. But something in her eyes made me want to tell the truth. "I was married for 26 years, I said. And somewhere along the way I forgot who I was. I became this version of myself that fit into her life, into the job, into the routine. And when it all fell apart, I realized I didn't know who I was anymore. So I came here to find out." She reached across the table and touched my hand, just for a second. "I understand that," she said quietly. "More than you know." Then she told me about her life. She had a daughter, 9 years old, living with her mother in a small village near Chiang Mai. She sent money every month, as much as she could, but it was never enough to bring her daughter to the island. I miss her every day, Wanita said, and I could see the pain in her eyes. But there's no work in the village. If I go back, I can't provide for her. If I stay here, I can't be with her. So I'm stuck. She worked as much as she could. Tour guide jobs, translation work, helping foreigners navigate visas and business permits. I work hard, she said, but I never get ahead. I'm always just surviving, you know? I did know. I knew exactly what she meant. We sat there in silence for a while, watching the waves, and I felt a connection I hadn't felt with anyone in years. Not attraction, not yet, just recognition. Two people who'd been broken by life in different ways, sitting across from each other and understanding without having to explain. You're helping me build something, I finally said. Maybe we can build it together. She looked at me for a long time, her eyes searching mine. Then she smiled. I'd like that, Dennis. I'd really like that. The property we finally chose was perfect. Right on Lamai Beach. A small building with open-air seating and a view of the ocean that took my breath away every time I looked at it. There was room for maybe 25 tables, a kitchen that needed work but had good bones, a small office in the back, a bathroom that needed updating. But I could see the potential. I could see what it would become. The rent was 40,000 baht a month, about $1,200. The owner wanted a 5-year lease with the first 6 months paid up front. It was more money than I wanted to spend all at once, but Wanita convinced me it was worth it. This location is perfect, she said. You'll get tourists from the beach and locals from the village. You can't beat that. I signed the lease on a Friday afternoon. Wanita was with me the whole time, her hand on my shoulder telling me I was doing the right thing. When it was done, when the papers were signed and the money was transferred, she hugged me. You did it, Dennis, she whispered. You actually did it. I felt tears in my eyes. For the first time since the divorce, I felt like I was building something that mattered. That night we went to dinner to celebrate. A small Thai restaurant, she said, was her favorite. The kind of place that doesn't have a menu, where the owner just brings you whatever's good that day. We drank too much wine. We laughed too much. And somewhere between the second and third bottle, the conversation got deeper. She told me about her ex-husband, how he'd left when their daughter was 2 years old, how she'd raised her alone while working 3 jobs, how she'd moved to Samoy hoping for a fresh start and found the same struggles in a different place. I told her about my marriage, about the silence that had grown between us, about the feeling of waking up next to someone and realizing you were completely alone. She listened without judgment, without trying to fix anything, just letting me talk. When I finally stopped, she reached across the table and took my hand again. You're brave, Dennis, she said. Most people talk about dreams their whole lives. You're actually doing it. I felt my throat tighten. No one had said anything like that to me in years. When we left the restaurant, the air was warm and the street was quiet. We stood on the sidewalk, the ocean somewhere behind us in the darkness, and she looked up at me. Thank you for trusting me, she said. Then she kissed me. It wasn't planned. It wasn't something I expected, but it felt right. We stood there for a long moment, her hands on my chest, and for the first time in years, I felt like maybe I wasn't too old to start over. Maybe I wasn't too broken to be loved. We can do this together, she whispered against my lips. You and me. We can build something amazing. I believed her. The next morning I woke up with her next to me in bed. The sunlight was coming through the window, and for a moment I just lay there watching her sleep. She looked peaceful, young. I felt a surge of something I couldn't quite name. Gratitude maybe, or hope, or fear that this was too good to be true. Over breakfast on the balcony, I asked her something I'd been thinking about since we signed the lease. Do you want to be my partner? I said, like officially, not just helping me but actually owning part of this. She looked up from her coffee, surprised. What do you mean? I mean 30% ownership, I said. You've done so much already. You know the island. You know the people. I couldn't do this without you. So let's do it together. Real partners. Her eyes filled with tears. She set down her coffee and covered her face with her hands. Dennis, she said, her voice breaking. No one has ever believed in me like that. I reached across the table and took her hands. Well, I do, I said. I believe in you. She cried for a few minutes and I just sat there holding her hands, feeling like I'd done something right for the first time in a long time. When she finally composed herself, She smiled at me through the tears. "Okay," she said. "Partners." We spent the rest of that week planning everything. The menu, the name, the atmosphere. Wanita wanted to call it the Driftwood. "Because you were drifting," she said, "and now you've found a place to stay." I loved it. It was perfect. We decided on Italian-American food with a Thai twist. Wood-fired pizzas, fresh pasta, local seafood. Things I knew how to make, things tourists would recognize, but with flavors that felt authentic to the island. Wanita drew up a basic business plan. She knew a graphic designer who could make a logo. She knew a contractor who could handle the renovations. She knew everyone, and everyone seemed eager to help. One afternoon, we were sitting in the empty restaurant space, surrounded by paint samples and furniture catalogs, when she brought up the bank account. "We should open a joint account for business expenses," she said casually. "It'll make everything easier. I can pay contractors, suppliers, utilities. You won't have to worry about translating everything or figuring out the bank system here." I hesitated. Not because I didn't trust her, I did, but because it felt like a big step. Like the kind of step that meant there was no going back. She must have seen something on my face because she laughed softly. "You don't trust me?" she asked, but her voice was gentle, not accusatory. "No, it's not that," I said quickly. I don't know, it's a lot of money." She nodded slowly. "I understand. Your ex-wife hurt you. You're afraid I'll do the same thing." Her words cut through me, because they were true. "Dennis," she said, moving closer and taking both my hands. "I'm not your ex-wife. I'm not going to hurt you. We're building this together, remember? I want this to work just as much as you do." Her eyes were so sincere, her voice so gentle, that I felt every doubt I had start to melt away. "Okay," I said. "Let's do it." We went to the bank the next day and opened a joint account. I transferred $40,000 into it that afternoon. That night, lying in bed next to her in the villa, listening to the ocean in the distance, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Hope. Real, tangible hope that maybe my life was finally heading in the right direction. Construction started exactly 2 weeks later. I wanted to be involved in everything. I'd show up at the property at 7 in the morning, ready to work, ready to understand what was happening. But Wanita would already be there, talking to the contractors in rapid Thai, pointing at blueprints, making decisions. "Dennis, you don't need to be here for this," she'd say with a smile. "Go enjoy the beach. Let me handle the boring stuff." But I wanted to be there. I wanted to understand. "I can help," I'd insist. She'd touch my arm gently. "You don't speak Thai. You don't know how construction works here. Trust me, okay? Let me take care of this part." So I did. I trusted her. I spent my mornings at the beach, my afternoons planning the menu, my evenings with her. The restaurant started taking shape faster than I expected. The contractor worked incredibly fast. Open-air seating with wooden tables and benches, string lights overhead. A small bar area. The kitchen was gutted and rebuilt with new equipment. I insisted on a wood-fired pizza oven, even though Wanita said it was expensive. "This is the heart of the restaurant," I told her. "People will come for the pizza. Trust me." She smiled and kissed my forehead. "Okay, Dennis, we'll do it your way." The oven cost $8,000, but when it was installed, it was perfect. Exactly what I'd imagined. But the bills started piling up faster than I expected too. Every week, Wanita would show me new invoices, contractor fees, material costs, kitchen equipment, furniture, permit renewals, business licenses. Every time I saw a new number, my chest would tighten a little more. "This seems like a lot," I'd say. She'd nod sympathetically. "I know, but this is what it costs. Everything is more expensive here than you think." I transferred another $15,000 into the joint account for equipment, then another $10,000 for furniture and decorations. Then another $5,000 for marketing materials and a website. Every time I hesitated, Wanita would reassure me. "It's an investment, Dennis. We'll make it back." And I believed her because I wanted to, because she was the only person who understood what I was trying to build. She moved into my villa around that time. It wasn't a big conversation. She just started staying over more often, until one day she showed up with 2 suitcases and said, "Is this okay?" Of course it was okay. It felt natural. We were building a life together, not just a restaurant. We'd wake up together, have coffee on the balcony, drive to the property together, come home together. It felt like what a partnership should feel like. But small things started bothering me, little things I tried to ignore. She was always on her phone, always texting. When I asked who it was, she'd say suppliers or contractors. Just business stuff, Dennis, nothing important. She'd disappear for hours at a time. I'd wake up in the morning and she'd be gone. Meeting with the electrician, she'd say when she came back. Or picking up supplies. I wanted to believe her, I needed to believe her, but there was something in the way she said it that felt rehearsed. One afternoon, I asked if I could come with her to meet a supplier. She laughed it off. "You'd be bored out of your mind," she said. "They don't speak English anyway, just relax. Enjoy your day." So I did. I tried to, but the doubt was starting to creep in. The doubt I'd promised myself I wouldn't let control me anymore. One night, I checked the joint account on my phone. $18,000 was missing. Just gone. I sat there staring at the screen, my hands shaking, trying to make sense of the transactions. Transfers to accounts I didn't recognize, cash withdrawals, payments to vendors with names I couldn't pronounce. When Wanita came home that night, I asked her about it. I tried to keep my voice calm. "Hey, I was looking at the account. Can you help me understand some of these charges?" She didn't seem worried at all. She pulled out a folder she kept in her bag and spread a stack of invoices across the kitchen table. All in Thai, all with numbers that didn't quite match what I'd seen. "This is normal here, Dennis," she said calmly. "Everything costs more than you think. Permits require. Payments to the right people. You know what I mean?" I didn't. "Like bribes?" I asked. She shrugged. "That's such an ugly word. Think of it as making sure things happen smoothly. That's how business works in Thailand." I looked at the invoices, unable to read a single word. "Can you translate these for me?" I asked. She sighed, and I could hear the frustration in it. "Do you really not trust me?" "It's not about trust," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "It's about understanding where the money's going. This is my life savings, Wanita." Her face went cold. "Our life savings," she corrected. "This is our business, remember? Or did you forget that part?" "I didn't forget," I said. Just what?" she interrupted, standing up. "You don't trust me. After everything I've done for you, after everything I've sacrificed." "Sacrificed?" I said, confused. "What have you sacrificed?" She grabbed her purse. "If you have to ask that question, then you don't know me at all." She walked out of the villa, and I sat there alone with the invoices I couldn't read, feeling like I'd done something wrong, like I was the problem, like I was the paranoid, controlling man who couldn't just let go and trust someone. So I let it go. I wanted to trust her. I wanted to believe that this was just how things worked in a country I didn't understand. I wanted to believe that I wasn't making the same mistake I'd made in my marriage, letting suspicion and doubt poison something good. The restaurant finally opened on a Friday night in late September. Opening night. I'd been dreaming about this moment for 30 years. I spent the entire day prepping, making pizza dough from scratch, preparing sauces, marinating chicken and seafood, chopping vegetables. I wanted everything to be perfect. Wanita handled the front of house. She'd hired 2 waitresses, both young Thai women with limited English but bright smiles. She'd set up the tables with candles and flowers. She'd created a playlist of soft jazz and acoustic music. When the first customers walked in at 6 o'clock, my heart was pounding so hard I thought it might explode. By 7, the place was packed. 20 tables full. Expats who'd heard about us through Wanita's connections. Tourists who'd seen our signs on the beach. Thai families from the village. The energy was incredible. I stood in the kitchen, sweat dripping down my face, pulling pizzas out of the oven, plating pastas, and for a few hours I felt like I'd actually done it. I'd built something real. During a quiet moment around 9, I stepped outside to catch my breath. The beach was dark except for the moonlight on the water. I could hear the waves. I could hear laughter from inside the restaurant. I felt proud. Actually proud. Then I saw Wanita. She was standing near the parking area, talking to a Thai man I'd never seen before. They were close. Too close. His hand was on her arm, and she was smiling at him in a way that made my stomach turn. I walked over slowly, and she quickly stepped back when she saw me. "Dennis," she said brightly, but I could hear the edge in her voice. "This is my cousin Somchai. He's been helping with some local connections." The man nodded at me but didn't say anything. He was younger than me, maybe 40, with tattoos on his arms and an expensive watch. He looked at Wanita, said something in Thai that made her laugh, then walked away. "Your cousin?" I asked. "Yes," she said firmly. "Why?" "You never mentioned him before." She brushed past me toward the restaurant. "I have a lot of family, Dennis. I can't introduce you to all of them. I wanted to push it, but customers were waiting, so I let it go. Again. The next morning I was up early to check the register. We'd made 32,000 baht. I counted it twice to be sure. About $900. I felt a surge of pride. It wasn't a fortune, but it was a solid start. Then Wanita came into the office, fresh from the shower, her hair still wet. "Good morning," she said, kissing my cheek. "How'd we do?" 32,000, I said, smiling. She frowned slightly. "Are you sure?" "Yeah, I counted twice. Why?" She pulled out a small notebook from her purse. "I have 18,000 recorded." My smile faded. "What?" "No, it was definitely 32. I counted the register myself. Some customers paid me directly," she explained, her voice calm. "It's easier that way. Less confusing for the waitresses. I have it recorded separately." "Where?" I asked. She flipped through the notebook, showing me numbers in Thai script. "Here, see?" I couldn't read it. I couldn't understand any of it. "Wanita, why would customers pay you directly instead of the register?" "Dennis," she said, and her voice had that edge again. "This is how it works here. You don't understand the culture. You don't understand how business works in Thailand. You have to trust me." There was that word again, trust. Can we make a rule that everything goes through the register?" I asked. "That way we both know what's coming in." She stared at me for a long moment. "You're accusing me of stealing." "I'm not accusing you of anything," I said quickly. "I just want us to be on the same page." "We are on the same page," she said coldly. "You're just not reading it right." She left the office, and I sat there feeling sick to my stomach. But I didn't push it. I didn't want to fight. I didn't want to be the paranoid foreigner who couldn't adapt to a different way of doing things. That week business was decent. Not great, but decent. We were getting maybe 20 to 25 customers a night. Enough to cover costs, but not enough to make a real profit. Not yet, anyway. I kept telling myself it was early. Word of mouth takes time. We just needed to be patient. But Wanita started talking about hiring a manager. "Someone local," she said one evening over dinner. "Someone who understands the Thai customers and can help us expand." I put down my fork. "Expand? We just opened a week ago." "I know," she said. "But we need to think ahead. And you can't be in the kitchen every night forever. You'll burn out." "I don't need a manager," I said. "It's just the two of us. We can handle it." She looked at me like I was a child who didn't understand the world. "You don't know how things work here, Dennis," she said slowly. "If we want this to succeed, we need local expertise, not just mine. We need someone who can navigate relationships with suppliers, with the community. Someone who speaks the language. You speak the language," I pointed out. "I can't do everything," she snapped. Then she softened. "I'm sorry. I'm just stressed. This is a lot of pressure." I reached across the table and took her hand. "We're in this together, remember?" She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. Right together. By the second week, I was exhausted. I was working 14, sometimes 16-hour days. Cooking, cleaning, ordering supplies, managing inventory, training the waitresses, everything. Wanita was barely around. She'd show up for a few hours during dinner service, charm the customers, then disappear again. "I'm handling the business side," she'd say when I asked where she was going. "Someone has to deal with permits and licenses and marketing." But I didn't see any evidence of it. No new marketing materials, no social media posts, no flyers or ads, just bills. The bills started coming in the middle of week 2. An electric bill for 40,000 baht. I stared at the paper, unable to believe what I was seeing. "This has to be a mistake," I said when I showed it to Wanita. She glanced at it and shrugged. That's normal for a restaurant. You're running ovens, refrigerators, air conditioning. For 1 week, I said. That's over $1,000. Welcome to Thailand, she said dismissively. A few days later, another bill came. 25,000 baht for a permit renewal I'd never heard of. What permit is this? I asked, my voice shaking now. Wanita looked at it briefly. Health and safety. Annual renewal. But we just opened, I said. How can it be annual already? She sighed heavily. It's prepaid, Dennis. For the year. This is how the system works. Why didn't you tell me about this before? I did, she said, her voice rising. You just don't listen. You're so focused on your precious pizzas that you don't pay attention to the real work I'm doing. The real work? I said, feeling anger rise in my chest for the first time. I'm here 16 hours a day cooking, cleaning, serving customers. What real work are you talking about? Her face went hard. You think I'm not working? You think I'm just sitting around? I'm the one dealing with the officials. I'm the one making sure we don't get shut down. I'm the one keeping this business afloat while you play chef. Play chef? I said, my voice barely a whisper. This is my restaurant. This is my dream. Our restaurant, she corrected coldly. Our dream. Or did you forget that too? I opened my mouth to respond, but she was already walking away. I stood there in the kitchen, surrounded by the smell of garlic and tomato sauce, feeling like the walls were closing in. That night after closing, I called my brother in Seattle. It was early morning there, but he answered on the third ring. Dennis? His voice was thick with sleep. You okay? I don't know, I said honestly. I told him everything. The bills that didn't make sense. The money disappearing from the account. The way Wanita was never around, but always had explanations that I couldn't verify. The cousin who didn't feel like a cousin. My brother was quiet for a long time. You need to check everything, he finally said. Contracts, receipts, bank statements, everything. I don't want to be that guy, I said. I don't want to be the paranoid husband who doesn't trust his partner. You're not her husband, my brother said gently. You're her business partner. And business partners check the books. That's not paranoia, Dennis. That's basic common sense. But she'll think I don't trust her, I said. Do you? My brother asked. I didn't answer because I didn't know anymore. Check the account, he said. Tonight, before you go to bed. Just look at the numbers. Then call me back. So I did. I waited until Wanita was asleep. Then I went out to the balcony with my laptop. The ocean was dark and quiet. The stars were out. It should have been peaceful, but my hands were shaking so badly I could barely type in my password. I logged into the joint account and started scrolling through the transactions. Out of $65,000, there was $3,200 left. $3,200. I felt like I couldn't breathe. I scrolled through the transaction history, my vision blurring. Transfers to accounts I didn't recognize. Cash withdrawals of 5,000, 7,000, 10,000 baht at a time. Payments to vendors with names I'd never heard of. I cross-referenced the invoices Wanita had shown me with the transactions. The numbers didn't match. Not even close. A contractor she'd paid $15,000 according to her invoice had only received $8,000 according to the bank transfer. The pizza oven that cost $8,000 had a bank record of $12,000. Every single invoice was inflated. Every single transaction had money missing. I sat there for 2 hours, going through everything, and by the end I couldn't deny it anymore. She was stealing from me. She had been from the beginning. When Wanita woke up the next morning, I was still on the balcony. I hadn't slept. I couldn't. She came out in one of my t-shirts, her hair messy, looking beautiful and sleepy. You're up early, she said, smiling. I held up my laptop. Can you explain this? Her smile faded when she saw the screen. She didn't even sit down. Explain what? The account, I said. My voice was steady, but barely. There's almost no money left, and the transactions don't match your invoices. She crossed her arms. I told you. That's what it costs to run a business here. No, I said. That's what it costs to steal from your partner. Her face went cold. Actually cold. Like I was looking at a completely different person. You think I'm stealing from you? She said, her voice flat. The numbers don't lie, Wanita. She laughed, but there was no humor in it. You don't understand anything, do you? You come here with your American money and your American dreams, and you think everything works the way it does in Seattle. But it doesn't, Dennis. This is Thailand. Things cost more. People need to be paid. Connections need to be maintained. That's reality. Show me the receipts, I said. The real ones. Not the invoices you wrote yourself. Her eyes flashed with anger. You think I'm lying? After everything I've done for you? I've worked day and night to make this place happen. I've sacrificed my time, my connections, my reputation, and this is how you repay me? I'm not repaying you with stolen money, I said, standing up. That's my life savings, Wanita. That's everything I have. Our life savings, she said through gritted teeth. This is our business, remember? Or are you taking that back now too? I want to see the real receipts, I said again. I want to understand where $63,000 went in less than 2 months. She grabbed her purse from the table. If you can't trust me, then we have nothing. She walked back into the villa. I heard her moving around in the bedroom, opening drawers, zipping bags. What are you doing? I called after her. What does it look like? She shouted back. I'm leaving. I'm not going to stay here and be accused of being a thief. I'm not accusing you, I said, following her into the bedroom. I'm asking for transparency. That's what partners do. She spun around, her eyes blazing. You're not my partner. You're my employer. And clearly, you think I'm stealing from you. So I quit. She threw clothes into a bag, her movements sharp and angry. Wanita, please, I said, hating how desperate I sounded. Can we just sit down and go through this together? There's nothing to go through, she said, zipping the bag closed. You've already made up your mind about me. You think I'm some poor Thai girl trying to scam the rich American. That's what you think, isn't it? That's not what I think, I said. Then what? She demanded, tears suddenly in her eyes. What do you think, Dennis? That I'm a liar? A thief? What? I didn't know what to say. Because part of me did think that now. Part of me believed every word my brother had said. I think something's not right with the money, I said quietly. And I think you're not being honest with me about it. She stared at me for a long moment, tears running down her face. Then she picked up her bag. I'm done, she said. She walked out of the bedroom, out of the villa, and I heard her motorcycle start up and drive away. She stared at me for a long moment, tears running down her face. Then she picked up her bag. I'm done, she said. She walked out of the bedroom, out of the villa, and I heard her motorcycle start up and drive away. I stood there in the empty bedroom, surrounded by the evidence of our life together, and I felt completely lost. She didn't come back that day, or the next. I tried calling her phone, but it went straight to voicemail. I sent messages asking her to please just talk to me, to help me understand, but she didn't respond. The restaurant was still open. I had to keep it open. I couldn't afford not to. So I showed up every day, cooked every meal, served every customer, and pretended like everything was fine. The 2 waitresses could tell something was wrong, but they didn't ask questions. On the 3rd day, I started watching her. I hate admitting that. I hate that I became that person, but I couldn't stop myself. I needed to know the truth. I drove to her apartment in the village, a place she'd taken me once when she needed to pick up some clothes. Her motorcycle was parked outside. I waited across the street in my truck, feeling pathetic and desperate. After about an hour, she came out. But she wasn't alone. The man from opening night was with her, Somchai, her cousin. They were laughing about something. He had his arm around her waist. She leaned into him, comfortable, intimate. Then he kissed her. Not a cousin kiss, not a friendly kiss. A real kiss. I felt like someone had reached into my chest and ripped out my heart. I sat there watching them get on his motorcycle together and drive away, and I couldn't move. I couldn't breathe. I just sat there gripping the steering wheel, trying to process what I'd just seen. That evening I went to the restaurant like always. I cooked, I served customers. I smiled when I needed to. But inside I was dying. Around 9 o'clock, one of the waitresses, a young woman named Ploy, pulled me aside in the kitchen. She looked nervous. Sir, she said quietly, I need tell you something. What is it? I asked, barely able to focus. She struggled for the words, her English limited. That man, Somchai, he not cousin. I felt my stomach drop even though I already knew. What do you mean? She looked around like she was afraid someone might hear. He her boyfriend, Long time. Everyone in village know this. How long? I asked. She shrugged. Maybe 2 years. Maybe more. They lived together before. Everyone know. The words hit me like physical blows. 2 years. She'd had a boyfriend the entire time. The entire time she was kissing me, sleeping in my bed, telling me we were building a future together. Why didn't you tell me before? I asked. Ploy looked down at her feet. Not my business. And Miss Wanita, she pay my salary. I need this job. I pay your salary, I said. She shook her head. She hire me. She pay me from other money. What other money? I asked, but I already knew. My money. The money from the joint account. She was paying the staff with money she'd stolen from me. Ploy touched my arm gently. Sorry, sir. You seem like good man. You don't deserve this. I thanked her and went back to cooking, but I was on autopilot. My mind was somewhere else entirely. Wanita finally came back to the villa that night. It was almost midnight. I was sitting on the balcony with a beer staring at the ocean when I heard the door open. She walked out onto the balcony, and for a moment she just stood there. She looked different, calmer, in control. We need to talk, she said, sitting down across from me. I waited. I'm sorry I left like that, she continued. I was upset. But I've had time to think and I want to fix this. Fix what? I asked. Ask the restaurant everything. She reached across and took my hand. I know you're worried about money. I understand that. And I'm sorry if I wasn't clear about expenses. But Dennis, we can make this work. We just need a little more capital to get through this rough patch. I pulled my hand away. Capital? Just 200,000 baht, she said quickly. To cover some outstanding bills and get us through the next month. Once we're profitable, we'll be fine. I stared at her. I don't have 200,000 baht. You have savings, she said. You told me you kept some money aside for emergencies. I kept $5,000 aside for emergencies, I said. For me, for my life. Not for the restaurant. Her face changed. The softness disappeared. So you won't help? She asked. Help with what? I said, my voice rising. Help you steal more money? Help you fund your life with your boyfriend? Her eyes went cold. I don't know what you're talking about. Somchai, I said. Your cousin. I saw you with him. I know he's your boyfriend. She didn't even flinch. You were spying on me. I was trying to understand who I'm in business with, I shot back. And apparently I'm in business with a liar. She stood up. You don't know anything about my life, Dennis. You don't know what I've had to do to survive in this country. You come here with your money and your privilege, and you think you understand struggle. But you don't. I know theft when I see it, I said. And I know manipulation. She laughed, harsh and bitter. You want to talk about manipulation? You manipulated me. You made me think we were partners, that we were building something real. But the moment things get hard, you turn on me, just like every other foreigner who's come through here. I didn't turn on you, I said. You stole from me. I worked for you, she corrected. I did everything for this restaurant. I found the location. I hired the staff. I dealt with the permits and the contractors and all the bullshit you couldn't handle. And you think you can just accuse me of stealing? You owe me, Dennis. I owe you, I said, standing up now. I gave you everything. I gave you money, a partnership, my trust. What more do you want? More money, she said flatly, because that's what it's going to take to save this place. And if you don't have it, then we're done. The words hung in the air between us. Then we're done, I said quietly. She stared at me for a long moment, her face unreadable. Then she grabbed her bag from inside and walked toward the door. You'll regret this, she said without turning around. You'll lose everything. The restaurant, the lease, everything. And it'll be your fault, not mine. Then she was gone. The next 3 days were hell. I tried to keep the restaurant running, but everything fell apart. The contractors showed up demanding payment for work I didn't know had been done. The landlord sent a notice saying I was behind on rent, even though I'd paid 6 months up front. The electric company threatened to shut off power. Every bill, every debt, every obligation came crashing down at once. I checked the bank account again. $700 left. Out of $85,000, I had $700. I couldn't pay the contractors. I couldn't pay the landlord. I couldn't even pay the waitresses their weekly salary. On day 21 of being open, I locked the doors. I sat alone on the empty patio of the driftwood. surrounded by the tables I'd carefully chosen, the string lights I'd hung myself, the pizza oven I'd insisted on. I stared at the ocean and tried to understand how I'd gotten here, how I'd lost everything so fast. My phone buzzed. A message from Wanita, just 4 words. "You should have trusted me." I didn't reply. What was there to say? She'd won. She'd taken everything. And I'd let her because I was lonely, because I wanted to believe in something, because I needed to feel like I mattered to someone. I spent the next 2 days packing up my things from the villa. Every item I put in my suitcase felt like another piece of my dream dying. The coffee maker we'd bought together, the photos I'd printed of the 2 of us at the beach, the menu drafts we'd stayed up late working on. All of it meant nothing now. I couldn't stay in Thailand. I couldn't afford to. And I couldn't bear to. I needed to leave before I completely fell apart. Before I booked my flight, I met with a lawyer, a British expat who'd been practicing in Thailand for 20 years. His office was small and cluttered, and he looked tired when I explained my situation. He listened patiently, taking notes, occasionally asking questions. When I finished, he sat back in his chair and sighed. "So you have no legal standing," he said quietly. I felt my chest tighten. "What do you mean?" "The business is registered in her name," he explained. "The lease is in her name. The joint account, while technically shared, has her as the primary account holder because she set it up. You signed documents in Thai that you didn't understand, which means you agreed to terms you can't now contest." "But that's fraud," I said. "She manipulated me." He nodded sympathetically. "Probably. But proving that in a Thai court, as a foreigner, with no documentation in English, with no witnesses willing to testify against a local businesswoman, you'd spend the last of your money on legal fees and lose anyway." I felt sick. "So she just gets away with it?" "I'm afraid so," he said. Then he leaned forward, his voice gentle. "Mr. Dennis, I see this happen 3 or 4 times a year. Foreign men come here, fall for a local woman, invest everything in a business or a house or a life together, and end up exactly where you are now. You're not the first, and sadly you won't be the last. What do I do?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. "You go home," he said. "You rebuild, and you learn from this." I paid him his consultation fee with money I could barely afford to spend, and I left his office feeling completely hollow. I booked a flight back to Seattle for 3 days later. One way, I couldn't afford round trip. The night before I was supposed to leave, I drove past the driftwood one last time. I told myself I wouldn't, that I should just let it go, but I couldn't help myself. I needed to see it one more time. When I got there, I couldn't believe what I saw. There were people inside. The lights were on. Music was playing. Someone had reopened it. I parked across the street and watched. A new sign hung above the door. Different name, same location. Through the windows, I could see Wanita. She was behind the bar, smiling, chatting with customers. Chai was there too, working in my kitchen, using my pizza oven, cooking food I'd planned to serve. They'd taken everything. The restaurant, the equipment, the dream. And they were running it like I'd never existed. I sat there for maybe 10 minutes, watching the life I'd tried to build continue without me, and then I drove away. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just felt empty. Completely, utterly empty. The flight back to Seattle was long. 23 hours with layovers. I didn't sleep. I couldn't. I just sat there staring out the window at clouds and ocean and sky, replaying every moment in my head, every red flag I'd ignored, every question I'd been too afraid to ask, every time I'd chosen to trust instead of verify. When I finally landed at SeaTac Airport, my brother was waiting for me. He took one look at my face and pulled me into a hug. "I'm sorry," he said. We didn't talk much on the drive to his house. What was there to say? He'd warned me. He'd told me to check everything, and I hadn't listened. I stayed with him for 2 weeks, while I figured out what to do next. I had less than $3,000 to my name. No job, no home, no plan. I was 58 years old and starting over from nothing. Again. My brother tried to be encouraging. "You'll bounce back," he'd say. "You always do." But I didn't feel like bouncing back. I felt like lying down and never getting up. Eventually, I found a small studio apartment near Pike Place Market. It was tiny, barely 400 square feet, but it was cheap and it was mine. My brother helped me move in with the few things I'd brought back from Thailand. One suitcase, that's all I had left of my entire life. A friend of my brother's owned a diner downtown, and he offered me a part-time job. Washing dishes, prepping food, nothing glamorous, nothing that required skill or creativity, just work. I took it because I needed the money, and because I needed something to fill my days. The first few weeks back were the hardest. I'd wake up every morning in that tiny apartment and feel the weight of what I'd lost crushing down on me. Not just the money, the hope, the belief that I could actually build something meaningful. The idea that someone could love me for who I was and not what I had. I started seeing a therapist in October. Her name was Dr. Sarah Chen, and my brother insisted I go. "You need to talk to someone," he said. "You're not okay, Dennis, and that's okay, but you need help." Dr. Chen was patient with me. She let me talk for the first 3 sessions without really pushing back on anything. I told her about the divorce, about Thailand, about Wanita, about how stupid I felt for believing it was real. "You're not stupid," she said during our 4th session. "You were vulnerable. And people like Wanita are very good at identifying vulnerability and exploiting it. But I should have known better," I said. "I'm not some naive kid. I'm 58 years old. I've lived a whole life. How did I not see it?" She leaned forward. "Because you wanted to believe, Dennis. You wanted to believe that you could start over, that you could find love again, that you deserved happiness. Those aren't weaknesses. Those are very human desires. Wanita didn't prey on your stupidity. She preyed on your hope." Her words hit me hard because they were true. I had wanted to believe, desperately. "How do I move forward from this?" I asked. "One day at a time," she said. "You acknowledge what happened. You grieve what you lost. And you slowly rebuild trust in yourself and in the world." "What if I can't?" I asked. "What if I'm too broken?" She smiled gently. "You're here, aren't it? You're still trying. That's not broken, Dennis. That's resilient. I've been back in Seattle for 3 months now. It's January, cold and grey, and I'm working at the diner 5 days a week. It's not the life I imagined when I left for Thailand. It's not the dream I spent 30 years building in my head. But it's a life. It's something. Some nights I still think about her. About Wanita. I wonder if she thinks about me at all. If she feels any guilt about what she did. If any of it was real for her, even for a moment. I'll never know. And I'm starting to accept that maybe I don't need to know. My brother asks me sometimes if I'd ever go back to Thailand. Not to find her or confront her. Just to go back. To try again. I shake my head every time. Not because I hate Thailand. I don't. The country was beautiful. The people, most of them, were kind. But I can't go back to the place where I lost myself so completely. Where I ignored every instinct I had because I was afraid of being alone. I hate that I let loneliness control me. That I made decisions based on fear instead of logic. That I trusted someone not because they'd earned it, but because I needed them to be trustworthy. Those are the things that keep me up at night. Not the money, though that hurts. Not the restaurant, though that dream is dead. But the realization that I betrayed myself. That I knew something was wrong and I looked the other way because the truth was too painful to face. Dr. Chen says I'm being too hard on myself. That everyone makes mistakes. That the important thing is learning from them and moving forward. I'm trying. I really am, but it's hard. Last week I was walking through Pike Place Market during my lunch break, and I saw a couple. The woman was Thai, maybe 30s. The man was older, American, probably my age. They were laughing, looking at spices, and she was translating labels for him. He had his arm around her waist, and she looked at him with what seemed like genuine affection. I felt my chest tighten. I wanted to walk up to him and warn him, tell him to be careful. Tell him to verify everything. Tell him not to put all his money in a joint account. But I didn't, because maybe their story is different. Maybe she's not like Wanita. Maybe he'll be one of the lucky ones who actually finds what he's looking for. I hope so, I really do. I don't want to become the bitter old man who thinks all relationships are scams and all people are out to get you. That's not who I want to be. I'm not angry anymore. Anger takes energy I don't have. I'm just tired. And a little wiser. And maybe that's enough for now. The other day, Frank, my boss at the diner, sat down next to me during a slow afternoon shift. He's 63, been running the place for 30 years. He knows my whole story, not because I told him, but because my brother did. "You gonna be okay?" he asked, sipping his coffee. I thought about it. Really thought about it. "Yeah," I said. "I think so." He nodded slowly. "Good, because the world needs more guys like you." I frowned. "Like me, I'm a disaster." He shook his head. "No, you're a guy who tried. You took a risk. You put yourself out there. Most people are too scared to even do that. They sit around talking about their dreams for their whole lives and never do anything about it. You actually did something. It didn't work out the way you wanted, but you tried. That counts for something." I didn't know what to say, so I just nodded, but his words stayed with me. I did try. I failed spectacularly, but I tried, and maybe that is worth something. I don't dream about opening another restaurant anymore. That dream died on a beach in Thailand, but I'm starting to have new dreams. Smaller ones, quieter ones. Maybe I'll save up enough to travel again someday. Somewhere safe, somewhere familiar. Maybe I'll meet someone who's honest and kind and doesn't need anything from me except companionship. Maybe I'll just learn to be okay with being alone. I don't know yet, but I'm still here, still breathing, still moving forward even if it's just inch by inch. And that's more than I thought I'd have 3 months ago when I locked the doors of the driftwood for the last time. So if you're out there, watching this, thinking about chasing a dream in a foreign country, let me tell you something. Do it, chase it, take the risk. But keep your eyes open. Trust people, but verify everything. Don't let loneliness make your decisions for you. Don't sign documents you can't read. Don't put all your money in someone else's name. And don't ignore the red flags just because you're afraid of being alone. Build your dream on solid ground, not on someone else's promises. Build it on your own strength, your own vision, your own truth, because that's the only thing no one can take from you. I learned that the hard way. I hope you don't have to. I lost $80,000 in Thailand. I lost my dream. I lost my pride. But I didn't lose myself. Not completely. I'm still here, still trying to figure out what comes next. Still learning to trust again, starting with trusting myself. It's slow. Some days I feel like I'm making progress. Some days I feel like I'm right back at the beginning, sitting on that empty patio, wondering how I got there. But I keep going. Because what else is there to do? You can't change the past. You can't undo the mistakes. You can only learn from them and try not to make the same ones again. If I could go back and tell myself one thing before I left for Thailand, it would be this. Don't build your future on someone else's lie. Don't sacrifice your security for someone else's comfort. And don't ever ignore your gut just because your heart wants something different. But I can't go back. None of us can. So I'm here, in Seattle, in a tiny apartment, working at a diner, starting over at 58. It's not the life I planned. It's not the dream I chased halfway around the world. But it's real, it's honest. And it's mine. And maybe that's enough.